Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Today we have a lot to talk about, including a super exciting fourth quarter comeback from Team USA to advance to the gold medal game. We'll talk about that game with Serbia, as well as the other exciting 4-point game between France and Germany, where we saw France advance. So we'll have a US-France finale in the Olympics. We'll also talk about the White Sox firing manager Pedro Grifol. Excuse me. He just won the first game in 22 games for the White Sox and immediately gets fired. We'll talk about what that means for the future of the Sox and the future of Chicago baseball, as well as just this season. Then we'll take a little bit of a look at the NFL as the first couple the second set of preseason game take place today. The Bears are back in action again, as this time we will see first overall pick Caleb Williams in action. Very, very excited for that, as well as the Giants, my New York Giants, in action. So, of course, I'm excited for that as well. And then we're going to take a look at the AFC South, starting our series there, taking a look at the Jacksonville Jaguars and their schedule prediction, as well as an offseason review for the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. But before we get into all of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to GSMCPodcast.net, or if you are on YouTube at the GSMC Sports channel, you can just go to the money sign there on the chat, leave a super chat. If you do either of those, that message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments, throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for tuning in, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show today talking a little bit about the Chicago White Sox. The Chicago White Sox have been in the news for a lot of not very good things very recently. The most recent not good thing that they've been in the news for here is firing manager Pedro Grifol. Grifol took over for the White Sox after they fired La Russa after he went through a bunch of health issues and was just not the right manager. He was very much a dinosaur out there at the manager position. He's a Hall of Fame manager, but was not it. They bring in Grifol here to replace him. He is one of the last people that survived the round of firings after last season, a season where they only won 61 games. This year, obviously, is worse, and there was no way, in anybody's opinion, I think, that Grifol was going to make it past this season. I thought, at least he would make it to the end of it. It doesn't really feel like it's going to make a difference now after 21 losses in a row, after a 14-game losing streak, after being on pace to be literally the worst team in the modern era of baseball, over 120 losses, which currently is the record for modern baseball. It just didn't feel like this was a team that needed to make a move in season. This is a team that already had a lot going on, and the clubhouse, for as bad as it was, didn't seem to be falling apart. Now, there were some reports of rancor is how they put it, which is a crazy word to use when talking about a baseball team, I think, in the clubhouse. But Grifol said it didn't really affect him or the team that much. Obviously, they just win their first game, which the timing of it is odd. And I think the timing of it being right after they break the losing streak, I think the national media attention that the losing streak got made the White Sox need to assign blame to someone, and rather than waiting until the end of the season, they chose to use him as that scapegoat now, because there's a lot of people that could have been used as a scapegoat, whether that be the GM, the president, the owners. Lots of people could have been used as a scapegoat. In this, they needed someone to blame. They blamed the manager, and Grifol was never going to make it out of this. I want to put that very clearly. Him being fired is not a surprise. The surprising part is the fact that he was fired mid-season on August 7th, August 8th here. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to do it right now. And, you know, they are bringing in former Cleveland Indians player Grady Sizemore to be the interim manager. So getting someone with experience in a clubhouse that, you know, isn't necessarily the most successful either, is nice to have. He was already in the clubhouse, but he's going to be the interim manager there. Not sure what the search for an actual manager is going to look like, but Grady Sizemore takes over for this White Sox team. And this is a White Sox team that, as it stands right now, sitting at 28 wins, 28 and 89. Right now, they're just trying to avoid the worst team in the modern era. Right now, the New York Mets of 1962 hold that record of 120 losses in a season. So going 42 and 120 is the record right now. They need to, if they want to avoid that kind of infamy, and they're already in that conversation. We did a whole episode about this, I believe, earlier this week, where we decided that this was the worst team in modern baseball history. But you know, this is a team that needs to win at least 15 more games this season. You know, they've got just about 54 games. They need to win little under half of them or just a little bit over half of them to get there. They need to be a 500 ball club to not have this record broken. And I think that is a little scary, to be completely honest with you. This is a team that is never this season played at a pace where they could at any point go 15 and 30, right? Or 15 and 20. That's what they need to do. They need to go 15 and 20 to avoid being worse than the Mets. And this is not a team that is built to do that. Just put plainly, this is not a team that is built to win games. And it didn't help that they made some trades. Now, they didn't trade away their biggest assets. And obviously, we talked about how clearly it was a big sigh of relief for everyone in this organization to get that win, get that monkey off their shoulder, beat the Oakland Athletics. But there's still a lot of season left. And really firing the manager now, like I said, he was always going to get fired at the end of this season. It's not a big deal that he did get fired. The bigger story is that he got fired right now, and that is what is surprising to me. That is what I am confused by, really. There's a lot of moves that they could have made. There's a lot of moves that this White Sox team needed to make. You could argue needed to do. Maybe get some young talent up, give them a chance. You know, you're not going to mess with their service time just yet. The rest of the season, they'll still be rookies. You know, there's not enough time in the season for them to graduate right now. But if I'm the White Sox, I'm just throwing stuff at the wall. This is a season that does not matter anymore. You've already been about as bad as you possibly can be. But anyway, let me know what you think of the White Sox hiring Grady Sizemore. I think he'll do fine as a manager. Hot take here. I think the manager in baseball, out of the four major sports in America, baseball, football, hockey, and basketball, the manager in baseball does the least. Now, that's not to say they don't do anything. They obviously make the lineups. They're the last decision maker. They go to the bullpen, but I think they do the least. I think coaches in football and hockey and basketball have to do so much more. They have to draw up plays. They have to manage, on top of managing the locker room, which is why I think part of the reason we call baseball managers as opposed to coaches when we call them in football and basketball and hockey. And maybe that's just me, but I think this move doesn't do much of anything. And I know a great manager can make a difference, and there's times where there's a manager that makes a difference, but this isn't going to do anything. Just to be completely honest with you, this isn't going to turn them around. This is just going to delay the inevitable. So I think, maybe it's better that he got let go mid-season. Maybe it's not, but I don't think this is going to affect at all how the White Sox play. Because I didn't get that much kind of we hate the manager out of the clubhouse. And that's the only reason why this would matter. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about the exciting basketball that happened in the Olympics. The U.S. just staved off elimination in a game that I was all but certain they were going to blow there at the end. We'll talk about that as well as the France-Germany game as we have our third place and gold medal games set up. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Feel like I'm losing my mind. It's everybody in the world blind. Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. World blind. Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm in fake shit. Hoping one day I'll blow up in the basement. Staying the top is so vacant. I'm in this shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out show for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that smile. Keep my way to be put down. It ain't replaced. I'll get my sound. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, I'm losing bits, I'm losing shit. It's stupid myth. You choose to live, but choose to dip. You choose to fight, you lose your grip and lose your gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. It's everybody in the world. Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. It's everybody in the world.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished talking about the White Sox firing manager Pedro Grifol just right at the end of the season, something that does not make a lot of sense to me, but the White Sox are going to try anything to not have the worst record in the history of modern baseball by the time this season is all said and done. In this segment here, we're going to take a trip over to Paris, talk about the Olympic basketball that's been going on, a bunch of great semifinal games between France and Germany and the US and Serbia, both of them decided by just 4 points. We're going to talk about these two incredible games, including a great fourth quarter comeback by the US, proving why they are the best team in the world right now. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to GSMCPodcast.net, or if you are on YouTube at GSMC Sports Network, all you need to do is hit that money sign next to the chat button. It should give you an option to do a super chat or a super sticker. If you do either of those things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the Olympic basketball for you guys here, as a lot has been going on in just just today, the semifinals were insane, and we're going to start off with the first semifinal game between France and Germany, a game that was on paper probably the best one. These were two great semifinal matchups. These were arguably the best four teams. You could say Canada might have been in there, but you put France versus Germany here, and I thought it was a great game. Wemby hits a dagger three down the stretch, plays great defense throughout. The French are getting a lot of help from unsung heroes. Guys like Gobert are all but out of the rotation at this point, and that is shocking to me. I know there's a lot of hate surrounding Rudy Gobert in the NBA. There's a lot of hate surrounding Rudy Gobert from players, media, fans about how he's not a great player. But France was struggling in the group stages. They had trouble going up against against smaller, faster, more athletic lineups, and they were playing Rudy Gobert a lot. Now, Rudy Gobert came out and said that he had surgery on his finger, which is why he's playing less. But in these last two games, in the quarterfinals and in the semifinals, Rudy Gobert has not played that much basketball. And the French team has looked just immensely better. Now, a lot of it you can look at and say, hey, shooting makes a big difference. Canada obviously could not shoot the basketball when they played each other earlier on in the quarterfinals earlier this Olympics in their last game. Germany also struggled. They shot a little bit better from three. They shot 29% from three. France still cannot shoot the three ball. Their defense is what is keeping them in it, holding Germany to 40% from the line, from the field, 15 turnovers. That's a big margin there, especially it's a +2 in the turnover margin, especially when we are talking about a game that's only decided by 4 points. This is a game where we got to see, guys like Nick Batum hit a couple big shots. Frank Ntilikina hit a big three down the stretch. Again, the biggest shocker to me, and when I'm looking at this box score for you guys, is the fact that Rudy Gobert only played 5 minutes. He played the second least amount of minutes on this team. You had guys like Evan Fournier putting up 20 minutes in this game, a bunch of non-NBA players putting up 10, 12, 17 minutes in this game, and Rudy Gobert only gets to play 5. That is really interesting when you look at it. Now, I don't know what's true about Rudy Gobert, right? Again, the controversy here is he hurt or is he just making an excuse? He does have that taped finger. He says he went into surgery. The French coach said that he did not go into surgery and he didn't play because of matchup, which, if that's the case, is kind of insane to me. This just disrespectful, honestly, and it also doesn't make sense for Rudy Gobert to lie there. Now, I know he's trying to protect his ego. He's an NBA player here on a roster that is not full of NBA players, and he's being practically benched, which is bad. It's a bad look for a guy who's one of the most decorated defenders in the history of the NBA, and he's not good, to put it bluntly. But France moves on. They're going to take on the juggernauts that are Team USA in a game that just finished up between the US and Serbia, the third time that these teams have met in the Olympic play, including group stage and the practice rounds beforehand. US sweeps them. They've yet to lose a game. This game was scary, though. And it was crazy to watch the U.S. hit a second gear. This was Steph Curry's coming out game in the Olympics. We know he's been struggling a little bit. He scored 17 points in the first quarter, 20 in the first half. He was dominant. He could not miss a shot. I believe he was 9 of 14 from 3. He finishes the game with 36 points, including a dagger 3 down the stretch, a couple of clutch free throws to put the game away at the very end of it, and the U.S. takes down Serbia 95-91. This was a game where the U.S. was struggling. They were down 15 entering the fourth quarter. They were down by as much as 18 in this game. They had never trailed by more than 8 at any point in the Olympics. They were constantly down. There was very few points in this game where the U.S. was winning. They were winning at the first bucket, and then they took the lead in the fourth quarter, and that is it. The intensity, the defense that came in, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, the Steph Curry, those three guys taking the lead. Kevin Durant did not make a basket until the fourth quarter. He hits a couple of tough contested twos down the stretch to help get the U.S. back into it. Joel Embiid was awesome in this game. I know there's been a lot of hate on Joel Embiid throughout this Olympic process. He comes into this game, plays excellent defense against Jokic. Jokic, for what it's worth, does his thing as always. 17 points, 11 assists, 5 rebounds. He was 0 of 6 from 3. As good as Serbia was shooting from 3, they did not make a single three-pointer in the second half. This was a team that, in the fourth quarter, this was a team that could not miss, seemingly, in the first half. Every shot they were taking, especially from deep, was going in. They struggled in that fourth quarter. Their offense ran out of gas, and the U.S., for their credit, just kept it. They never gave up, and that was something that was really, really impressive to see. This was a game where Steve Kerr relied heavily on his starters. He played basically played the entire fourth quarter with a lineup consisting of LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Devin Booker, and Joel Embiid. Now, there were a couple of substitutions. Drew Holiday got in there at the end. Bam Adebayo got in there on the last possession. But that was for defense down the stretch. But that was the lineup that they wanted in at the end. And I think it's really cool that and I know we found out this hierarchy already, that you have the big three of the old guys, right? In LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant that are going to lead it. Those three guys were awesome. LeBron James finishes with a triple-double, 16 points, 10 assists, 12 rebounds. We already talked about Steph Curry, who just went off. 9 of 14 from 3, 12 of 19 from the field, 36 points. That's one shy of the all-time single-game record in U.S. Olympic history, currently held by Carmelo Anthony, who got passed by Kevin Durant in the last game in the quarterfinals for most points ever scored by on Team USA. This was a scary game. We've talked about this before. We've seen what happens. This is not like the Team USA played poorly. It's that the other team got hot. And we got to see I don't want to call it desperation, but I will call it desperation here. We got to see what it looks like when this team goes full try-hard mode, right? And that was a scary switch to see. If they play like that, there is not a single team ever in this Olympics, in the world, that can come close to touching them. They outscored Jokic, the best player in the world, and his team, who seemingly could not miss a shot in the first 3 quarters, by 18 points in the fourth quarter. And they were able to come all the way back and win. It was one of the most impressive things that I have seen. They got fired up, and that's really exciting to see. How fired up that they got. They're in it. They want to win. This isn't just a formality for them. Excuse me. This is something that means something to these guys. This is the tournament that they want to win badly. They were celebrating like they had just won one of the biggest games of their careers at the end of it. That's how big of a comeback this was. This was a great team effort by Team USA. Steph Curry deserves all the props. He finally came out and hit all of his shots. It was so impressive to see. Team USA comes all the way back from a huge deficit, setting up a gold medal match between them and France, the home country. I'm very, very excited for that. 2 days from now, the bronze medal match is going to be awesome to watch as well. Jokic and Serbia, who just took Team USA to the brink, taking on Germany, who has never medaled in basketball ever, going for their first Olympic medal in basketball. Very excited to see what is going to go on there. Let me know what you think. I think the U.S. should pull this out. Like I said, what I saw at the end of that game, there's not a team that comes close to how good this is when this team is when it's at their best. As far as the bronze medal game goes, I think that could go either way. I'm inclined to go for Serbia because of how much they pushed the U.S. team to the brink, but this Germany team is no joke either. We will see what happens in the next couple of days. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're gonna go right back across the pond, take a look at the NFL as we have 2 preseason games kicking off today, including first overall pick Caleb Williams making his NFL debut for the Chicago Bears. We'll talk about that as well as the other game between the Giants and the Lions and some rookies to look out for, including Malik Neighbors, who's been showing out in mini camp and training camp so far. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube, absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you were just tuning in, we just finished talking about the amazing comeback made by the Team USA and the I apologize here. Team USA and the Olympic Team USA over Serbia, a game where they came back from 18, one of the biggest comebacks in US Olympic history, a game that they got really pushed to the brink for. We also talked about the White Sox firing their manager, Pedro Grifol, after snapping a 21-game winning streak. In this segment, we are going to move to the NFL, where we'll stay for the rest of our show. We're going to talk all about some preseason action that is back. We have some exciting news as Caleb Williams will make his debut on Saturday, but we have some other quarterbacks, some rookie quarterbacks that might be in action today, including rookie quarterback Drake May, rookie wide receiver Malik Neighbors, as well as a bunch of other highly touted rookies making their debut today. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to GSMCPodcast.net. If you are on YouTube at GSMC Sports Network, you can use the money button that is right below the chat. If you do that, leave a super chat or leave a message. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. Appreciate everybody so much for tuning in, sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to talk a little bit about the NFL preseason. The preseason begins tonight at 7 with 2 games between the Panthers and the Patriots and the Giants and the Lions. The Giants and the Lions have done some joint practices leading up to today's game. It's been chippy. They've gotten fights. They were both fined $200,000 for it. One of the standouts from these practices, and where a source of a lot of fights have been, between rookie wide receiver and really exciting young rookie Malik Neighbors and the Lions secondary. There have been a bunch of fights starting out of there. We're excited. I'm excited to see what he can do. He went 17 for 18 in the joint practices when being targeted, catching 17 of the 18 balls that were thrown to him. Absolutely dominant performance over training camp. This should be a fun game, and it's always fun. Obviously, the preseason doesn't matter too much, but we do get to see a lot of rookies in action for the first time. One of those rookies that was officially confirmed to be playing in their games is the Bears' Caleb Williams. First overall pick, Caleb Williams, one of the most hyped quarterbacks we've seen probably since Trevor Lawrence, maybe since Andrew Luck coming out of the draft. He went number one overall. And now we get to see him in action, preseason action against the Bills. Josh Allen will also be in action for at least the first quarter. So we're going to see a lot of great players for both the Bears and the Bills. Very excited to see what Caleb Williams brings to the table. Obviously, he's not fighting for a roster spot. He is the starter for this Bears team. We're looking more to see how he looks. Does he look comfortable? Does he kind of knows the plays? How is he fitting into the new scheme? Does he have timing down with his receivers? Can he hold up against an offense, a true NFL pass rush? What's he going to do with the increased game speed? I'm very, very excited to see what happens for that. Now, outside of the Bears, the games tonight, like I said, the other game tonight is between the Patriots and the Panthers. The Patriots and the Panthers, while they don't have the top picks in the draft, there's a couple of names that I am looking out for. The Patriots, obviously, you have Drake May. I haven't heard if he is playing or not in this game, but if he does, again, his stuff at a training camp for Drake May hasn't been the most exciting things you want to hear. It hasn't been the most positive news, but he should get a chance to play tonight against the Panthers. And on the Panthers side, guys that I'm looking for, questionable to play, although someone that I'm really curious to see if he will play, Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette, the receiver that the Panthers took with their first pick in the draft. Excuse me. He seems like a really, really great player. Everything out of camp with him has been exciting. Obviously, he's got that fun accent that the social media team loves to play around with. But Xavier Legette is the guy that I'm looking for in that game. And of course, Drake May from the Patriots. Now, getting back to that Giants game, the matchup that I'm looking for is the rookie corners from the Lions going up against Malik Neighbors. We're going to have rookie on rookie action. I'm very excited to see. Obviously, as a Giants fan, I want to see what Daniel Jones is doing, but that's not as important as watching these young guys, these rookies, take some snaps, get their first NFL situations figured out. Let me know who you are the most excited to see. In our next segment, we are going to take a quick break and break down the Jacksonville Jaguars schedule. The Jaguars are right around the corner. The Jaguars are next up on our series, taking a look at every single team for their offseason, giving them a grade, as well as taking a look at their schedule, giving them a record, and whether or not they will make the playoffs. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you were just tuning in, we just finished talking about some preseason rookies we are excited to see this weekend and today, including Caleb Williams, confirmed to be getting his first real NFL action, something that we missed out on when the Bears played and won the first preseason game, the Football is Back game, also known as the Hall of Fame game. Very, very excited to see what happens for his career and the rest of this preseason. In this segment, we're going to continue our continued series talking about every single NFL team, their offseason, as well as what they are doing for this upcoming NFL season. Today, we are focusing on the Jacksonville Jaguars taking a trip down to Duval County. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to GSMCPodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube at the GSMC Sports Network channel, you can go and hit that donate the $sign button, leave a super chat. If you do either of those, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments, throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars offseason has been interesting, right? This is a team that had a lot of high expectations coming off of a playoff win last 2 seasons ago now. Heading into last year, they were coming off one of the biggest playoff comebacks of all time. Trevor Lawrence looked great at the beginning of the season. They were getting Calvin Ridley back to enhance that weapon core that needed a boost, if we're being completely honest with you. And it started off great. They went 8-3 to begin the season, and then everything went downhill. Trevor Lawrence gets hurt against the Bengals. He continues to play through most of the pain, plays in almost every single game, but it just isn't enough. This is a team that ends up missing out on the playoff, completely collapses down the stretch, finishes 9-8 on the year, and that was an easier schedule than it was this year. This was a schedule that went up against a much weaker division than it is this year, and that's not to say that this isn't a generally weak division. I'd categorize this division more in the mid category with the improvements of Will Levis, the Colts getting Anthony Richardson back, and obviously you have the Texans and CJ Stroud, who came out of nowhere last season. They did only finish 10-7, but there's lots of momentum there with them. The Jaguars are a team that are kind of an enigma, right? We don't know what kind of Jaguars team we're going to get. We don't know, and I'm going to take them back to their last postseason win against the Chargers. We don't know if we're going to get first half Jacksonville Jaguars going down 27-0, Trevor Lawrence throwing, 4 interceptions, or second half Jacksonville Jaguars coming back from that deficit, having one of the best comebacks, largest comebacks in the history of the NFL. But this is a Jacksonville team that first and foremost needed to focus on getting their guys back, and they did that in a big way. Their defensive leader and their offensive leader both signed massive contract. Josh Allen, defensive end, coming off of a 16-sack season, signed a $141 million contract to stay in Jacksonville, followed up by Trevor Lawrence signing an absolutely massive deal, making him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. $55 million a year for Trevor Lawrence. That is a contract that is heavily under dispute for a lot of people. I've talked about it a bunch, especially when this contract came out. I think he's a guy that absolutely can play to the level of deserving that contract. Now, paying quarterbacks is complicated, especially a guy like Trevor Lawrence, because you can't let him walk. He's talented enough that you can't let him walk if you have the ability to re-sign him. but he's not talented enough that you can hand out that deal willy-nilly without having to think about it. It's an interesting spot to be in. The Jags kind of had their hand tied there where they had to give him a contract. I still think it was the right move, and I think he can absolutely turn this season, his career around. Not that it's a bust yet, or should be discussed as a bust. He's had a very tumultuous first 3 seasons. Obviously, one of them is under Urban Meyer. He's got the last half of this season got marred by injuries. He's played at MVP levels for large stretches of the season before. He just needs to get back to it. Now, what's going to hurt is the offensive line is bad. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. The offensive line is bad. It's not a good offensive line. They didn't get much better. They still have, their main piece on the offensive line in Cam Robinson, Brandon Scherf. They brought in Mitch Morse. So they've got a couple of names on the offensive line, but they don't have a lot of depth. So if something goes down there, they're in trouble. The other issue is with their weapons. Well, they do have great running backs options in Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, and Dearness Johnson. That's good depth at the running back position. When it comes to the wide receivers, they're super thin. They let Calvin Ridley walk. He ends up signing a big contract with the Titans division rival over there. Their wide receiver one, or their wide receiver trio, duo, whatever you want to call it, Christian Kirk, who's been very productive since signing his $70 million contract and coming to Jacksonville. Gabe Davis, who is one of, if not the most inconsistent players in the entire NFL. You see him go off for 150 yards one week and 3 touchdowns, and then drop all 5 balls that are thrown to him the next week. You never know what you're going to get out of him. Brian Thomas Jr. was their first-round draft pick. They had 2 draft picks. They traded back. They had the 17th overall pick, They traded back to get the 23rd overall pick, giving the Vikings the 17th overall pick. And they drafted Brian Thomas Jr., a speedy guy that I think is going to be really good. Outside of that, the wide receiver depth isn't great. And really, outside of Christian Kirk, there's not anyone that I can for sure say they can rely on. I love the idea of Brian Thomas Jr., and I love the theory of Gabe Davis, but we haven't seen Brian Thomas in NFL action, and Gabe Davis is incredibly inconsistent. They've got some burners on the depth, though. Devin Duvernay from the Ravens. Parker Washington is an interesting one. He's come up and gotten a couple of big plays throughout his career so far in Jacksonville. At tight end, they have the reemergence of Evan Ingram as he continues to be great away from New York. That is a great tight end to have. But when it comes to the defense, they obviously have Josh Hines Allen now. They bring in Eric Armstead, who has injury issues, is already on the injury report. Former first overall pick Trayvon Walker. So the pass rush, in theory, should be good. Where you start to run into issues is at corner, right? You have starting at corner Ronald Darby. You have Ronald Darby listed actually twice on their depth chart. This is a really weak corner team. Now, I like the safeties that they have. They've got Darnell Savage, who they brought in from the Packers, that's a big move that I really do like. Again, they have him listed twice on their depth chart so far, so I'm not sure exactly what they're doing. They also have Adrian Amos, though, who I like. He's a little older, but I do like him at a starting safety spot. But this is a team that defense, they fired their defensive coordinator, is not really good. It's not the shining star. They need the offense to really come in and be that piece that they want it to be. As far as the draft goes this offseason, they had not the most exciting draft. I like that Brian Thomas pick in the first round, but outside of that, there's nothing that really wows me. Javon Foster is a guy that I think might be able to come in, make a couple of plays for them, but he's gonna add, that tackle depth that they need. We talked about the not having the depth at the offensive line if something happens. he's an important piece to have. This is not a team that inspires confidence if anyone gets hurt. While I say that, this is a team that I do believe in. I love Trevor Lawrence. I don't know if this is their year as the as their schedule continues to get a little bit harder from last year. Vegas has their win total currently set at 8.5. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to go over whether or not I think they can beat that win total. We'll go over their schedule game by game, give them a record, see if I have them making the playoffs. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished talking about the Jaguars offseason. I did forget to give them a grade. The grade I will give them is a C-. Not a great offseason for them. They lost some players positionally that I don't think they could have afforded to lose, and they replaced them. Especially at the wide receiver, it's a big downgrade for a team that needs weapons. But in this segment, we're going to talk all about the Jaguars' schedule, go over all 17 games, all 18 weeks, give them a record prediction, as well as whether or not they will make the playoffs in a stacked AFC. Right now, Vegas has the line set at 8.5 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll see whether or not I have them going over or under that total. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to GSMCPodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you are on YouTube at the GSMC Sports Network channel, you can use the super chat option. There should be a money sign right by the chat. Go ahead and leave that as well. I appreciate anything you guys do give. If you have a burning question or anything at all you'd like to ask, throw it in the chat. Throw it in the comments. I'll get to it as soon as I possibly can. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the Jacksonville Jaguars schedule. The Jaguars have a very interesting schedule. I'll say, to say the least here. It's a very interesting schedule, right? Because they're in a division in the AFC South that I think has the ability to be really good. The Jaguars, the Colts, the Texans, and to a certain extent, I will say the Titans, all have a chance to be really good teams in the NFL. The Texans obviously have the clearest path to victory there. They're coming off of a season where they won a playoff game with rookie quarterback CJ Stroud. They only improved their defense and offense. The Jaguars fell off down the stretch, but there's no reason to think they can't play like they did at the beginning of the season. The Colts have Anthony Richardson, and he looked really good when he was in. We don't know if he can stay healthy, though. And the Titans have Will Levis, who, if he can develop like he was in his first NFL action, he can be a really good quarterback. But we don't know what's going to happen. This is a schedule that's either going to be really easy or really hard, because outside of this division, which is, half of this schedule, basically, they play the NFC North, which includes the Lions and the Packers, two tough matchups, and the and the and the AFC East, which again has the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills in it. All of those could be very, very tough teams. But we're going to run through this Jaguar schedule. Their bye week this year is on week 12. A solid place for a bye, a little later than midpoint where a lot of teams would have it, but 12 is not the worst spot to be. Starting off their schedule today, this year, they go down to Miami, a crosstown rivalry, I will say, between Jacksonville and Miami, just down I-95. You have the Jaguars in Miami, and again, this is a battle of quarterbacks that just got brand new contracts. I think the Dolphins are going to be really good. The Jaguars fall in this one, losing the first game, down 0-1 in their season. Week 2 against the Cleveland Browns. And I would give this win to the Jags if not for the fact that Myles Garrett is going to destroy that offensive line. Because of that, I'm giving the Browns a victory here in Week 2. The Jaguars fall to 0-2 on the year. In Week 3, they go all the way up to New York, take on the Buffalo Bills. That game, Josh Allen versus Josh Allen, always a fun game there. I think Josh Allen might get a sack on Josh Allen here, but I think the Bills take care of business, and the Jags fall to 0-3. Week 4 against the Texans on the road, division matchup, anything can happen, but it is on the road, so benefit of the doubt, I'm giving it to the Texans here. They fall to 0-4 on the season, the Jaguars do. Week 5, another division opponent, this time against the Colts, this time at home. We don't know how great Anthony Richardson is going to be. I'm a big Anthony Richardson believer, though, but I do have the Jags winning this game, get their first win of the season in Week 5, start out the season 1-4. Week 6 against Caleb Williams and the Bears on the road, the two most hyped quarterbacks in recent memories coming out of college. Caleb Williams taking on Trevor Lawrence. I have Trevor Lawrence and his $55 million taking care of business in that matchup. The Jaguars improve to 2-4 on the year. Then they take on the New England Patriots at home. And we've talked a lot about the Patriots. We talked about them yesterday, the whole Brandon Ayuk sweepstakes that's been going on with them. But I think the Jaguars take care of business here against the Patriots, improve to 3-4 on the season. So just like they lost 4 in a row, they win 3 in a row, and they're back to where they want to be. Unfortunately, the schedule takes a much tougher dip here for their next 4 games, going up against 3 teams that made the playoffs last year and the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers are the first game in Week 8. Jordan Love also signed a $55 million contract. This is going to be the first game between $55 million contract players in the history of the NFL. I think Jordan Love is going to win out on this matchup. I like his weapons and his defense just a little bit better. The Jaguars fall to 3-5. Then they head up to Philadelphia. Not a great place historically for Trevor Lawrence. They've played a game or two up there in his career, and it did not end well. The Eagles are going to win this game as well. History does not change. The Jaguars fall to 3-6 on the year. Then against the Vikings, in a game that I think could go either way, I'm giving this game to the Vikings, though. The Jaguars fall to 3-7. And then a tougher battle up in Detroit against the Lions. Last game before a much-needed bye. The Lions are a better team, though. Jared Goff also signs a massive contract. Jaguars are going around and playing every single team that gave a massive contract out to a quarterback this season. The Lions, the Packers, the Dolphins, everybody who gave out big contracts this year. We will see a battle between them and the Jaguars as well. But I think Jared Goff wins this battle of the big cats. And heading into the bye week, the Jaguars are sitting at 3-8 on the year. Not a great spot for them to be. The reverse of what they were last year, though. Maybe that gives them hope. See if they can come crawling all the way back to make a run for the make a run for the playoffs here. Week 13, coming off of a bye, they take on the Houston Texans at home. They win this game. The Houston Texans are not unbeatable. They're a very good team, but this is a Jaguars team that can absolutely keep up with them in the division as well. They improve to 4-8. Then they take on the Titans on the road. I'm giving this one to the Titans, although again, this one could go either way. It's just a division game, and when in doubt, home division team usually gets the win there. So we're giving it to the Titans here. They fall to 4-9. And then they get the Jets, a great team with Aaron Rodgers at home. I'm giving this one to the Jags. The Jets lose this game. Jets are a very good team. The Jags win this game though, and they improve to 5-9 on the season, taking on the Raiders in Week 16 up in Vegas. It's hard to judge the Raiders right now because we don't know what their quarterback situation is, but I'm giving this win to the Jags. The Raiders lose. The Jags improve to 6-9 on the year. Then against the Titans, Week 17, rematch from Week 14 where they lost. I think the Jags win this game at home. 3-game winning streak heading into the last week of the season. I think they're basically out of playoff contention at this point, but they are 7-9, looking to go and get to that 8-win mark if they can on the road against the Colts. I think this game is going to mean a lot for both of these teams. Both are going to be trying real hard. I'm giving to the Colts here. I think the Colts might be in a position to maybe win the division at this point, so we're giving this one to the Colts. They take this game. The Jaguars finish off their season at 7-10, 2 games worse, than they were last year. They end up missing out on the playoffs here, have them go 7-10. Not the kind of season that they wanted after paying Trevor Lawrence. It is just how it goes. Like I said, they get a little unlucky with the schedule. They have to play a second place schedule against a lot of really good second place teams, as well as going up against some tougher divisions outside of their own, which this division is going to be a crapshoot. I honestly don't think 7-10 takes you out of this division race. There is still a chance that they do, depending on how the rest of the division goes, end up competing for division even down the stretch. That Colts game, well, I don't think it will decide the division. It might, depending on what's happening with the Texans down the road. But anyway, let me know what you think of the Jaguars. Gave them a C- for their grade, and had them going 7-10. Again, it might be an overreaction because of how they played at the end of last season. This is a team that very well could go anywhere. I think 7 is their low. 7 to, we'll say, 11 wins. This is a team that could be near the top of the AFC, but we will have to see what happens and as this season takes place. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Appreciate you guys for taking time out of your Thursday to talk some sports with me. We'll be back here, same time, same place tomorrow, talking about all of the breaking news from around the world of sports. If you have anything you want me to talk about, go and throw that in the comments of this video. I will check before tomorrow's live stream. But thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on the other side. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. Bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn it.